Whitney Houston and Bobbi Kristina. Didn't we almost have it all? I had a chance to look at it, and I have some comments and some conclusions coming up next. You know, I think that we've seen everything when it comes to Whitney Houston and Bobbi Kristina. This particular documentary gives us a little bit of a different perspective. They're comparing Whitney Houston's life with that of her mother. Her mother struggled to find balance in motherhood. You know, she had to work. She was a fabulous singer. They're both fabulous singers. They're both on the road, and they're both wanting to be good moms, and they're finding that difficult because they're always away from home. Another parallel are the tragic bathtub deaths of both Whitney Houston and her daughter, Bobbi Kristina. So I was a teenager. When Whitney Houston came out, we were teenagers. And we remember very well how we looked at her. She was America's Black princess. She was. I mean, that's what we thought anyway. She seemed sweet and she seemed innocent. Then she shows up with Bobby Brown, and we loved it. We just didn't think that he would be with her. It was a shock to see them together. It really was. It was like, what are they doing together? They don't have anything in common. That's what we thought. In this documentary, you're going to hear that they had a lot more in common than we thought. Whitney Houston was considered America's Black princess. She lived a glossy life. She did not want to live this glossy life that everybody thought she was living. She wanted to be down home. She was a round-the-way girl. She was very rough and tumble, just like Bobby Brown. They matched each other's personalities perfectly. I mean, they did. And we just didn't know that they did. So all of these tabloids are coming out, and it's ruining Whitney's life. Whitney, you know, she wanted to be a mom. She wanted to be a mother. She wanted to give Chrissy a different life. We hear from the counselor. The counselor tells us that she lived with Whitney Houston. They got us like a separate house and moved in together so that she could help Whitney. She didn't want to invest all this time in Whitney if Whitney wasn't serious. So it seemed like Whitney was serious. And then Bobby comes. Bobby comes. In the documentary, she says that Bobby comes to the house and he brings. She told him that he had to leave the house because, you know, she's in recovery and she needs to not be around. So she needed to be away from Bobby, even though Bobby was not a bad person. He was a good person. He was a good guy at heart. And, you know, but, you know, he didn't need to be with Whitney, and Whitney didn't need to be with him. But Pebbles is in the documentary, and she tells us that they were really connected. There was a connection between Bobby and Whitney like no other. Have you ever had that kind of relationship where you're so connected to that person and it's crazy and it's, you know, that's what she was going through with Bobby. Sherelle called Bobby her soulmate. So it was very difficult for her to get away from him. He eventually leaves. He goes with another woman, and she's devastated about it. And then we see her just with Chrissy. The drug counselor also told us a lot about Whitney's emotional turmoil. Whitney was really struggling to be a good mother. I mean, people were, all the judgy Judys out here were judging her and, you know, downing her as a mom. And so there were a lot of judgy Judys, you know, who didn't understand what she was going through. It wasn't exactly as it seemed. She was taking care of Bobbi Kristina. She wasn't really neglecting her, they say. You know, she was trying her best and she was struggling. And, you know, anybody that has ever dealt with somebody with drug addiction, you know, it's hell. It is hell. You know, they don't want to get help. I'm surprised they were able to get her to go to rehab, to be honest. because most of the time you can't even get them to go to rehab because they don't think that they have a problem. Whitney goes to rehab and she really tries, but she keeps falling off the wagon. She keeps, she just can't, the drugs are just calling her. They're calling her. And this is what we see all the time in drug addiction. It's very, very sad. And, they need to get away from the people who are hanging out with them and wanting to do drugs with them. So much promise, and that to happen to both of them that way, it's just really, really tragic. It was surprising for them to both die this way. But if you have ever studied family line, and you've ever studied family genealogy, and you've studied family destinies, you see that a lot. You see patterns. Other people in their family, the further back you go, probably had the same problem, and they may not be the first ones who died in water because of that. I noticed that when I'm studying family lines and family genealogy, a lot of times you'll see those same patterns being repeated down through history. Most people probably don't know about it. If you don't have a good family history compiled, you may not know it. You'll see that a lot of these patterns are the same, and they're repeating themselves generation after generation after generation. It is really freaky, and it is the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. The prosecutor, Mai, I think her name is Mai, she comes in and she lets us know about, she's the expert on the crime case. She tells us what she saw, that they found Chrissy in a bathtub, face down. And they don't know whether or not she was murdered or if she drowned. They don't have any idea. They need to figure it out. And Nick has all the answers. Nick has all the answers. Another interesting detail, Nick's brother is in the documentary, and he kind of comes to his brother's defense. He's giving a very tearful commentary about his brother and how Bobbi Kristina's death haunted him. You'll hear from Sean McGill. I like the way Sean McGill tells this story. He tells us what happened leading up to the finding of the body of Whitney Houston in a bathtub. It's Clive Davis's pre-Grammy party. Everybody is fabulous. They have on sparkling clothes, and they're getting ready to be at this exclusive party, the Beverly Hilton hotel. And right upstairs is Whitney Houston. Something else that was very, very weird was how